We're sure you know what the calendar looks like. This is the final business and markets day for the month of August. We're entering the critical final 4 months of the year of you in the market. You know what September looks like. So you need to get everyone ready. But of course, this is very interesting time. So let's start from what you call the helicopter view of where we are at the moment. The global markets heading into the month of August, final weekend today, with some relief that Washington and Beijing might reach a trade deal or a bit of a consensus over this weekend and preventing tariffs tit for tat set to start on September the 1st. If you're already in the news, you know what the rate will be. U.S. is increasing its tariffs for about 150 billion Chinese goods from 10 to 15% around early morning on September the 1st. Then later in the day, Beijing is expected to retaliate. But Beijing is hoping that U.S. will step back from the barricade and allow some talks to go on and maintain what you call the status quo, as it were. But markets are taking a bit of that into a bit of a relief today, and that's where we're starting off this Friday for you. Perhaps that will give you a bit of a sucker for a week that's been more of nail-biting around the world. And today we're getting reports that emerging markets, currencies from South Africa to Egypt and others around the world are relieved that China is ready to re-engage the United States on what you call the trade tariff talks. What's the oil prices? According to CNBC early today, oil prices is seen at $60 to $66 per barrel, a best case scenario if the trade talks between Washington and Beijing go through very smoothly. But if it goes worse, then the worst case scenario for the price of crude oil will be between $50 and $52 a barrel. The scenario, that's what everyone is looking at. But the price of crude oil is holding around $60 early today for Nigeria's benchmark, the Brent. So let's talk about Nigeria's economic data. The Statistics Office calendar showing the release of social statistics report today and the second quarter 2019 terms of trade report due out tomorrow. That will hope the Statistics Office put that up. But the big story, as you may already know, is the second quarter GDP report, which will be released 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday, September the 3rd. That will be the biggest economic news on the calendar for next week. You need to keep an eye on that. We'll be swarming all over the Q2 GDP numbers on Tuesday and Wednesday, as always. So keep that in mind as well. The biggest economic data out of Nigeria is all that data coming through before a critical meeting of the MPC later in the new month. And this is part of the earnings reporting season in the Nigerian markets. Bellwether Brewer Guinness Nigeria PLC says the company will be paying 152 kobo final dividend per share for its year ended June the 30th, despite the dismal general earnings of the brewer blamed on the rising or increase in excise duty, a weak consumer demand, and a poor operating environment in the country. This is giving you the what you call the highlights of the full year 2019 numbers from Guinness Nigeria. This is what it looks like. Revenue, total revenue by Guinness came down by 8.03%. Profit before tax was down 2.55%. Net profit dipped even much more by 18.37%. You may need to get your hands on the full report to understand where that came through. Nearly 20% decline in net profit, despite a pre-tax profit decline of 2.55%. You can see the margin there. Try to get the devil in the details. Earnings per share as well dipped to 250 kobo for full year ended June 2019, and that's down 24.24% on a year-on-year basis. That's the Guinness Nigeria full year numbers in summary. So what does the first half of this year looks like for Fidelity Bank, one of Nigeria's tier 2 lenders, listed lenders? It shows a profit line buoyed by fee and commission income and other operating income for the first 6 months of the year. Let's show you the numbers for Fidelity now. This is showing you the headline revenue, 103.6 billion naira, much higher than the same period of 2018 for 6 months. Net interest income, we'll put a double star there to show you that that went up to 84.2 billion naira. Interest expense, 48.9 billion. That's much higher than the same the figure for the year earlier. Net interest income, 36.8 billion. Fee and commissions was much bigger, 13.09 billion. As a matter of fact, in the first 6 months of last year, Fidelity Bank reported 9.9 billion as fee and commissions income, but reported almost, wow, how much? I'm trying to get that in percentage. Must about 13.09 billion. Double digit, about 4 billion, much higher. Other operating income, 4.7 billion naira. Pre-tax profit, 24.1 billion. Net profit, 13.6, and earnings per share sitting at 47 kobo for the first 6 months of the year. No interim dividend was announced. Read the details as it were. So we're heading into the month of September and the fourth quarter of 2019. These are some of the stories we're carrying along with us as we formally end the business in the markets today. The authorities in Nigeria says there'll be no write-off of the 3.4 billion cassava bread intervention fund of 2008. That's according to the Bank of Industry. Says that money, which was given to the Master Bakers Association, those who are in the bread industry, in 2008, almost 10 years after, says there'll be no write-off of that money, and says that intervention fund will have to be repaid. Of course, I'm not sure anyone having cassava bread anywhere in the country as we speak, but that's a story for another day. Meantime, I'm sure you're all ready for the Lagos-Ibadan Highway partial closure effective Monday next week. The part of the bridge which is around Bega and Kara, just exiting Lagos. The rehabilitation, according to the folks working on it, says will be substantially done for a reopening on December 15th. And you need to take note of this. Will be substantially done, not completely done. You need to read the details if you get in the news. You need to understand this. It will be substantially done for December 15th, reopening for a year-end holiday travels. In other words, the authorities are not sure that the rehabilitation of the Lagos end will be fully completed, but whatever stage it is they expect a substantial rehabilitation done by December the 15th so that they can open it up and then we can all have year-end travels by road using this highway. Perhaps there'll be a return to the completion. Whatever that is still anyone's guess moving forward, but that bridge, the longer Lagos-Ibadan Highway, Lagos end will be substantially done by December the 15th. So be prepared for 3.5 months closure. So we have the unfinished budget for 2019 and preparations for budget 2020. That's lying squarely before the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning. Later next month, expect the Central Bank's crucial monetary policy meeting on the 23rd and 24th. We have about 4 weeks more to wait for that. Meantime, the Central Bank's August Business Expectation Survey showing 28.6 index reading of respondents optimistic on the overall confidence index of Nigeria's macro economy. You get a little bit more of that in our news later in the day. So let's check in quickly with the marketplace. A bit of a sell-off yesterday on the shares of Dangote Cement, Nigeria's stock market leader. About 2.175 million ordinary shares and about 500,000 units of MTN shares were traded. So the stock market broad index went 0.66% south on Thursday. Let's get our business correspondent from our studios at the stock exchange to take us through the numbers, this and other market-moving data of yesterday. Edijong Enwang is live to us on the conversation this morning. Sitting in there today for Temple Ashaju, who is taking a breather. Good morning, Eddie.
Yes, good morning, Bosin. Good morning, Bosin.
Yeah, please go ahead. So give us a reading of the market's numbers.
Or just like you said, the sell-offs on shares of Dangote Cement and MTN Nigeria dragged the index down by 0.66% to 27,425.57. Now, boasting, this brings the month to date and year to date losses at minus 1.06% and minus 12.74% each. But market sentiment rather, which is measured by market breadth, was positive yesterday as we had 18 gainers versus 14 losers. Now, looking at the activity chart, volume was lower by 10.97%. Value was also lower by minus 45.07%. We saw about 116.09 million shares worth 1.65 billion naira traded. However, yesterday we saw a higher number of deals exchanged at 3,129, which was 9.18% higher. Zenith Bank was the most traded stock in terms of volume, as we saw 19 million of its units traded yesterday, while Dangote Cement was the most traded in terms of value, as the shares traded were valued at 353.67 million. And looking at the sectors, we see that losses from the industrial goods and consumer goods and MTN Nigeria marks the gains from the banking, insurance, and oil and gas counters. Banking was up 0.09%. ETI posted gains. FBNH, FCMB, UBA, Fidelity Bank, also posted gains yesterday. Insurance was up 1.83%. Continental Insurance was up almost 10%. M-Benefit was also up by 5%. But consumer goods was down by 0.19%. Flour mill was down by 5.59%. GlaxoSmith was down 4.22%. Unilever was also down 3.45%, while the 1.81% loss from Dangote Cement dragged the industrial goods sector down by 0.74%. Now, if we move to the energy markets, now we see that the 6.82% gains from Forte Oil pushed that counter up by 0.10%. Now, investors were most likely reacting to the news of the takeover offer of 500,000 shares of 50 Kobo each by Ignite Investment and Commodities Limited. So that share was up. That stock was up rather. Total was also up by 0.62%, trading at 97 naira 10 kobo. But Oando was down by 2.56%. So if we move over to the unlisted securities now, we see that that market closed positive yesterday by 0.19%, with the equity cap at 517.52 billion naira. Now, looking at volume, value, and deals, we saw 77,890 units worth 3.28 million naira traded in 7 deals. Only 3 securities were traded yesterday out of the 38 securities there. Now, keeping our eyes out on the fixed income markets, bonds markets witnessed a reversal from its bullish trend as yields increased marginally by 2 basis points across the bond curve. Now, sell-offs on the February 2028 bonds led to the yield expansion at the mid segment. So, we saw about 26 deals valued at 46.05 billion naira. Now, activity in Treasury bills was slightly bullish by an average of 2 basis points, and this was seen across most of the maturities traded in the Treasury bills two-way quote market. However, the demand for secondary market bills waned. We saw about 253 deals yesterday, valued at 132.52 billion naira. Bosin.
Yes, Eddie, it's a very interesting day for the stock market. I'm sure you're watching very closely these numbers again for today. Everyone is, it's been a very interesting week so far, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it has been. So yesterday we had a number of earnings. We had Fidelity, we had Guinness, we also had PZ. But I'll talk about that more, on the third segment later in the show, Bosin.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Thank you so much, Didong Ewang. So yesterday we were doing the trading at the secondary window here in Lagos. The Securities and Exchange Commission met with the military, trying to preach the gospel of securities market investment. This is one big event you don't usually see. I can't remember the last time that I saw the capital market meeting with soldiers, Nigerian members of the Nigerian army, those who are responsible for saving lives. This is very rare images there. Of course, they spent the last years fighting insurgency in the north and elsewhere around the country. So these men and women were put together by the Securities and Exchange Commission to listen to the other side of news, which is the securities market. And as you can see there, among them were also a policeman and other police officers, I beg your pardon, and others who were listening very carefully to what the head of the securities markets in Nigeria, Mary Uduk, has to say about investor education and why they need to have the knowledge of the market. And despite all that is happening in the security front, these men and women ought to invest on Market Street. Let's take a listen to Mary Uduk, the Acting Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
The purpose of this engagement is to tell you about the capital markets and some of the initiatives being undertaken by the Commission, particularly those that affect you as investors. That is why this event is tagged A Day with Investors. This forum, like many others, therefore affords us the opportunity to engage both the existing and prospective investors among you to ensure that the gains of your participation in the capital market will not be lost. Investor education in the capital market is one of our key strategies to foster investor engagement on financial planning and decision-making. As such, programs like this afford you the opportunity to widen your knowledge about the capital market with a view to increasing your participation. It also creates awareness about Ponzi schemes, which my colleague spoke about, and other sharp practices, which we want you to avoid, like I couldn't avoid MMM during my time. The Commission is making effort at addressing financial literacy and empowerment gaps within our society. This is expressed in the various financial inclusion and literacy initiatives we are currently undertaking in collaboration with other stakeholders. The event today is one of such. The benefit of investment will continue to trickle in to ensure relative financial security even at old age. Ladies and gentlemen, the agenda for this outreach is to enlighten us about the capital market and the attendant benefit, while also cautioning us against investing in fraudulent schemes that appear mouth-watering, but are actually not capital market products. As the saying goes, all that glitters is not gold. There is no doubt in my mind that the capital market presents a good platform for addressing many of Nigeria's economic challenges. On our part as regulators, we shall continue to introduce new ideas and policies towards developing and regulating a capital market that is dynamic, fair, transparent, and efficient to contribute to the nation's economic development. While it may interest you to note that the Commission has implemented and is still implementing market initiatives from its 10-year capital market development plan, some of these initiatives include recapitalization of capital market operators, e-dividend management system, dematerialization of share certificates. So if you're still having a paper share certificate, you need to do something about it, meet your brokers about it. Direct cash settlements, among others. I also use this opportunity to salute our gallant officers of the military, paramilitary, anti-graft agencies present here today for your role and sacrifices in maintaining the security of our lives and property. This is because without a peaceful environment, no sustainable economic development can be achieved. While you continue to work for the peace and security of our dear country, you must also work for the peace and security of your financial future. I am happy to inform you that the capital market has a number of products and platforms that can guarantee you this.
Mary Uduk, the head of the SEC, speaking there to members of the military and other security agencies, the police, road safety, and others, thanking them for a job well done as far as providing security for Nigerians and why it is important for them to understand how the securities market work. Let's come back after the break. We're taking a look at the final 4 months of this year. What's the outlook on economics and the marketplace? It's a very important conversation we're having next. Stick around, everyone. We'll be right back.